Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. We are thrilled to have back with us Representative Pat Ryan from the 18th District of New York. Welcome, Congressman.
Thanks for having me again. Happy New Year.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year to you too. Um, the House has an opportunity, this will be seen on Thursday, later in the day on Thursday, to vote to extend the ACA credits and to preserve health care for millions of people. The Republicans were utterly unwilling to do anything and therefore triggered the shutdown, the longest in U.S. history. What has changed and what gives you confidence now that it's going to pass?
Well, it's still touch and go because the Republicans are in disarray,
Yes.
including, we're talking on is it Wednesday? I don't even know what day it is these days. And there's a procedural vote tonight that they've had to delay. So I think though that will pass and we'll be voting on it Thursday. And I think what's changed is the American people have made their voice known to the credit of a lot of people, including my colleagues. Democrats have been out there to the credit of our leadership, to the credit of Hakeem Jeffries, who's quarterbacked this. I mean, saying it's outrageous. Costs are already too high for healthcare. The last thing we can afford to do is jack them up more for millions of people. So I think that is what's changed. And if this passes, which I think it will, it's actually like a democracy in action moment of the people making their voices heard, us organizing around this, us holding the line, us Democrats holding the line on behalf of the people and getting a win here. So to be clear, there's still a lot to improve on healthcare affordability and quality. But this is a big win if we can get this passed.
And this does remind me of 2017 when same situation. Democrats were in the minority in the House and in the Senate. Trump was in the White House, and yet Trump could not repeal the ACA. And on exactly the same issue here, in exactly the same configuration, Democrats may be able to pull one out of a rabbit out of the hat. Um, do Republicans at this point understand how unpopular their view is? Do they understand they're going to get killed in the midterms by maintaining this position?
Well, this is one of like a dozen plus, particularly cost related issues where they're
Yes.
wildly out of touch with where my constituents are and where the people are. This is obviously a huge one. I put it in two camps. There's the group of the vast majority, maybe 90% of House Republicans anyway, who are just blindly, pathetically following Trump off the cliff politically, but more importantly, like really hurting people, cutting a trillion from healthcare, not willing to help on this, everything that was in that big ugly bill. But there are a few Republicans who still at least try to listen to their constituents, and they are freaking the you know what out because they know this is just, as you said, in 2017, it was rightly kryptonite. It's going to be again. And you saw a little bit of efforts by some of these quote unquote moderates on the Republican side to try to sign on to these discharge petitions, basically to cover their ass, frankly, with their constituents. And so they know they're in trouble here, and rightly so. Because we just got some survey results back from my district. The stories we heard back qualitatively and quantitatively of how people are going to be hurt on healthcare
Mm,
through these actions of the Trump admin, it is, I mean, it's just un-American. It's just straight up un-American.
absolutely. Now, if this does pass, it goes over to the Senate. There's some talk about some kind of compromise, maybe not a 3 year or 2 year. Maybe they'll have some qualifications, maybe they won't. In your talks with New York's senators, are you optimistic at all that the Senate could get something done?
I actually am optimistic the Senate will get something done. The question is, how much do
Right.
they dilute down and sort of detract from what is a big win. Again, like Leader Jeffries putting out this aggressive 3 year extension and holding the line on it and the caucus sticking together is really important. And my sense is certainly Senate Dems are now strongly united. And there are a lot of Republicans in tough spots that are going to have to, hopefully again, listen to their constituents. So we'll get something done on it. But um, the fact that, like, to your point, like for basically a decade plus, they've just been trying to take healthcare away from people and raise costs of healthcare, the voters know that that is the Republican brand when it comes to
Yes.
healthcare. So there's going to be major consequences, both politically and materially, for a lot of people.
Let me switch gears to foreign policy and the military. You're a graduate of West Point, and wanted to get your perspective. Donald Trump unilaterally essentially went to war. He used a overwhelming military force. He's kidnapped the president of a sovereign country, at least it was sovereign, and now he's talking about running the country and he personally dispensing oil. Give me your perspective as both a former military person and also somebody who's part of the first branch of government that last time I checked in the Constitution had the sole power to declare war.
It, to your great question, like this is just wrong in every dimension, constitutionally, strategically. I think the big takeaways to me are um, separate from the process, which is an important discussion of
Yes,
an absconsion of responsibility by the Congress. Like this action does not make America safer. Like my constituents are not safer because of this. It's going to cost, most importantly, like we have already spent American blood. There were 7 Americans wounded in this, which we wasn't even disclosed till last night. We spent American blood and treasure already toppling another regime in pursuit of oil, and Trump has not been subtle about his views on that. And now they're saying we're going to your point, quote, run this country, threaten to invade 6+ additional countries, many one of whom is a NATO ally. And like this is the juxtaposition between the two items we're talking about here, Jen, is so important because
yes.
what my constituents want is lower my healthcare costs, lower my housing and food costs, lower my utility bill. And everything he's doing is not focused on that, is actually raising the costs. And just on a personal level, I served 27 months in combat in Iraq. What is happening now rhymes so eerily, infuriatingly with what is going on. Like we just came out of a briefing with Marco Rubio, dual-hatted as the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor, who shrugged his shoulders when we asked how much this cost, who joked and made light of the fact that we have supposed leverage on the now acting interim Delsey, who is listed in as one of those who was indicted along with Maduro. So this is just upside down, and most importantly, and I'm sorry, I could go on this because it pissed
No,
me off,
please.
but like most importantly, this is not what the American people want. It's not
Absolutely.
what the people want.
As in Afghanistan and Iraq, we had, in essence, an open-ended commitment. Did you get any sense from the administration that they have a time frame? How long is that armada going to stay off the coast of Venezuela? And if there is increased violence, and we're seeing some signs of that increased repression, are they going to put troops on the ground in Venezuela?
Well, this is where we get the mixed messages again. There were major mixed messages in that press conference on Saturday, where
Yes.
Trump saying we're going to run it. Then later, Rubio is trying to clean it up and saying, no, 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 that's not the case. Then later, Trump doubles down and no, we're running it. So that is what's clear is there is no plan. I mean, they have clearly not thought this through. And I was really struck by how the hubris actually in the briefing
Yes.
we just came out of, where I think Rubio in particular feels like this is untouchable. Like this is like his neocon dream from the beginning of his political career, and he's seeing it lived out. And I think he feels almost invincible. But this is not going to go well. And they even admitted in this briefing that we're already seeing major repressive action by the
Yes.
new regime, which is totally predictable. And they would not commit to your answer, your direct question. They would not commit to any timeline of a free and fair election, a bringing in of the previously democratically elected president from last year, or any commitment around our military forces being deployed, a carrier strike group surrounding the country.
And to be clear, that deployment means they're not deployed elsewhere. It is an enormous armada, and not only the cost, but the risk that we're
Opportunity cost.
posing. Exactly. Um, One of the aspects of this that is inexplicable to me is that Trump says it's all going to get paid for by the oil from Venezuela. Part of the problem is that the Maduro regime, of course, has completely trashed their own oil system and their own oil industry. And it is expected that it would cost tens of billions of dollars just to get it back up and functioning properly. Who is going to pay for that?
So that question was directly asked, and like most of the questions in this last classified briefing, not answered. The vaguest, the vague hand wave of, well, the oil companies are going to do it, which of course they have increasingly publicly and definitely privately said we're not ready to sign on the dotted line to that sort of mess of a situation politically and materially. So again, saying this is half baked would be generous in every dimension. It's like a 1% baked mess of a plan. Both militarily was executed well, but then all the rest
Yes.
not thought through. And again, like I just have to keep saying it because I think this isn't like the American people get this. It rhymes with Iraq so eerily and strongly. And if there's one thing the American people agree on, it's stop open-ended foreign entanglement, regime change wars, largely based on oil that spend our precious blood and treasure when we need that here.
And that, in fact, was the message Donald Trump ran on.
Right.
And um, and frankly, this is worse because at least George W. Bush in Iraq got a authorization for use of force, and they had a fulsome debate. They misrepresented what was going on there, but at least there was a debate and there were votes in Congress. Um, Let me shift gears to what Congress might do or could do. There's talk of a War Powers Act. There's talk about using the power of the purse so we don't wind up subsidizing the oil companies. Do you think there's any kind of chance that Congress can actually take back their role, and they do have one in foreign policy, given the fact that you do have some nervous Republicans now in the House?
Yes, I actually do. I mean, there's two big leverage points coming. One is we will introduce another war powers resolution, which is privileged, meaning it has to be voted
Yes,
on specific to Venezuela. And this happened just a day or two before Christmas, but that almost passed in
yes.
anticipation of essentially what ended up happening by one vote. I mean, it was 213 to 211, but one vote swapping would have kept us, at least if they followed the Congress and the law, which is debatable these days, but that would have blocked this action that happened. So I know Democrats will be united on this. And to your question, I've talked privately with several Republicans who already had concerns and now have serious concerns about particularly the doubling and tripling down on the we're running the country aspect. I think we can debate the strike and the arrest or kidnapping, whatever you want to call it, is at least there's some more room to debate that. Not that I'm saying I fully support it, but the idea that we're going to run a country that's a true mess is just defies common sense of any normal
Absolutely.
person.
And
The other thing that I think is
yeah,
important, the defense appropriations bill is going to play out over the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's another really important leverage point here that we're thinking about. How do we bring that into play over the next, and that has to be passed before January 31st per the last continuing resolution after the shutdown. So I know that's wonky in the process, but there are multiple force points here coming up.
well, Congressman, as always, we thank you. And the question has to be put to Republicans. Are you in favor of forever wars for oil? And each one of them is going to have to answer that at some point. So we thank you. We thank you again for your service in the military and now in Congress. And we will look forward to speaking with you more in the new year. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.